My name is Randy Howell, and you're listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
And I'm Robert. In every episode, we're bringing you faith stories and fishing memories from some amazing members of the fishing community.
So join us as we shed a positive light on all things faith and fishing. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. I'm Cam.
Hey, and I'm Robert.
And we have a really fun episode for you this week. But first, a couple of housekeeping things. First thing I want to mention is Jackson Orr's Catch Charity Tournament. We have been trying to get a hold of Jackson to have him on the show, and it has not worked out. We had him scheduled for one time, and it was like the stars aligned, and he was able to go fishing with his dad, and it was beautiful weather and everything. I was like, dude, go fishing with your dad. And shout out to Jim Orr. He and Jackson recently took first and second in was it a Hobie BOS tournament? Robert,
I remember them doing that. I don't remember which tournament it was in.
But yeah,
sounds right
them. Though. Shout out to them for doing that. But his catch tournament, Kayak Anglers Together Can Help. It's an awesome charity event. It takes place the weekend of the, I think it starts the 28th, goes through the 30th. I could be wrong on that, but the links to that will be in the show notes for this episode, so you can go sign up. Even if you are not planning on fishing the tournament, I encourage you to go sign up for the tournament, because how those tournaments work is the top anglers get to choose where their percentage of the winnings go to, what charity they will donate to. So everybody gets to fish for their own charity, which is really awesome. Last year and last fall, we had a bunch of really awesome local ministries that got donated to. Save JT got donated to. So definitely go check that out. Use the link in the show notes to check that out. And I promised it on last week's episode, and I realized about an hour ago that I did not put that link in the show notes for last week's episode. So I'll go back. By the time you're listening to this, it will be in the last week's show notes. But Robert, how's it going, man? Have you gotten a chance to fish since we last talked?
Dude, I went to the pond by work today, and I was just really wasn't having that good a day at work. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to lose my mind on somebody, or I could go sink a Cinco for a little bit and see. So I went right in the middle of the day, and I'm like, I'm surely I can get a couple, and threw around, got a couple of small dinks. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to change to a Texas rig and just bomb it out there in the middle and see if this hot weather's moved those bass out to the middle. And I ended up, they weren't in the middle, or the one I caught wasn't, but I ended up getting it's probably a 4-pounder. So yeah, that was enough to get my nerves calmed back down. And so then I went back to work after that little lunch break. So
for sure. I have not gotten a chance to do any fishing, but I have been getting ready for Saturday in the Raleigh Rumble tournament. Going after that one, trying to bring home a win on that one. And I guess this episode will air after, so I can say now that I am going to, you guessed it, Lake Crabtree.
I knew he's going to go to Crabtree.
So here's the thing, so for those 5 lakes, there are 2 of them that I'm familiar with, and one of them was super crowded last year, and I didn't go to it. I went to Lake Crabtree last year. There were 2 of us on the whole lake.
Yeah.
And everybody that I talked to, nobody likes that lake except for me. So
so it'll probably be the same too this year, because I know he likes that lake too. And if you're anywhere on that water with him, you're in good company and you're around fish. So
absolutely.
I mean, if it was only you 2, maybe it'll be only you 2 guys again.
And it suits our style very well.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. But
so you'll have fun there. But I predict the winner will be off of Lake Wheeler again.
You think so?
So yeah. And I think it'll be dragging a jig in the middle of the lake, because if I was going, we had baseball on Saturday, so there's no way. The schedule came out. I think there's an 11 o'clock game and a 3 o'clock game. So if we had late games, I was going to come fish half the day and then go. But there's no way I can fish it. But I'm going to go with Lake Wheeler for the win. So we'll see. We'll see if we're right. Well, hopefully you're right. I'm wrong. Hopefully the win is
maybe you're right, but I will say this: in the middle of the summertime, you cannot pay me to fish in the middle of Lake Wheeler, because it's 2 football fields long, and they allow wakeboarding on it and like wake boats on it, and it's like, no, not a chance.
You would already have them caught by the time the wake boats came. You'd be done by 9:30, 10 o'clock. But we'll see. I forget Damien, he fishes there all the time. So I would say he didn't do that good last year, but I'd say watch out for Damien. I know he's going to fish it, and he's going to fish Wheeler because he lives right there.
Yeah. And he's the one who took the Wildcats on it last year. So he's one to watch out for sure. But
it'll be fun. I'll be watching.
Absolutely. Well, let's thank a couple sponsors, and then let's get things started with this week's guest. If a fly rod is your weapon of choice, check out Atollas. Their Fly Caddy is the most convenient way to get your favorite flies to the water, or just keep them handy by clipping it to your hat, truck visor, backpack, rod case, or just whatever. You can also bundle it up with flies from independent fly tires that Atollas has teamed up with through their Fly Light project. Choose from bundles specializing in redfish, carp, saltwater, or freshwater. Head over to atollas.co, that's ATOLLAS.co, to get your Fly Caddy today, and use promo code faithnfish15 to save 15% on your order. That's faith the letter N, fish the number 15 at checkout for 15% off.
A huge selection and crazy fast shipping is already enough to turn heads as an online tackle shop, but Omnia Fishing sets themselves apart with their ambassador program. With Omnia, you can send in fishing reports for your local lakes that recommend baits, structure, tactics, and gear. And when another angler takes your advice and purchases something from your report, you get credit for it to spend at Omnia. The best part means that with Omnia Fishing, you can shop by lake and purchase baits and gear that are proven to work where you're fishing. To get started, go to omniafishing.com and use promo code FNF15 to save 15% on your first order.
All right, so before we get our guests introduced, I should say I am dealing with some sort of summer sinus thing going on. And I just took a sinus medication that breaks things up a lot. So I'm going to try to be quick on the mute button so that you don't have to listen to any sniffles. But if all of a sudden I go out, that just means that the dam broke.
It's
and
working.
I need to go. I need to go.
I thought you were going to say we had to keep you awake if you start dozing off and kind of poke you a little bit. But now hit the mute button if you need to. It will be good.
Yeah, for sure. So, so this week we are excited to bring Daren Wendell on of Wendell Fishing. So he has been killing it with his podcast lately, which is how I found him, because I think we were actually supposed to have the Creek Crawler on one night, and it was supposed to be right after he got off with this other live show. And I think he was kind of he was like, you know what, I think 2 in one night is too much. So so we ended up rescheduling, and so I was like, well, I have to go find out who stole my guest out from under me, and I sat there and I binged such a fantastic show. And he said, hey, if you're listening to the podcast, reach out. I'd like to hear from you. So I did. And he was like, oh, well, that's awesome. Tell me about your podcast. And I told him a little bit, and he was like, that sounds right up my alley. And I was like, well, we would love to have you on the show. He said, well, I'll come on yours if you come on mine. And so last night we were on a live show for Kayak Fishing Obsessed with it, which is his podcast and his live show. So we're going to bring him on now. Daren, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, a long time no see. I think 24 hours ago we were talking to each other. So this is great.
That's
Feel
right.
like we're best buds now.
Yeah, man. So to get us started, go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners. Tell us who Daren Wendell is, and if it's Wendell and not Wendell, let me know. We're in North Carolina, so we've seen it pronounced probably 3 different ways.
I go by it all. Basically, if it sounds or resembles anything like Wendell or Wendell, I go by it. But it's Wendell Fishing. A lot of people think that's my first name because that's the channel name. And I actually have like 3 first names: Daren, David, Wendell. So people get them confused all the time. But my story, is that what you're looking for? My story, kind of into fishing?
Well, just kind of tell us who you are.
Yeah.
Tell us how you got into fishing and what brought about Wendell Fishing.
Yeah, who I am. That's a great question. So got into fishing. I remember just when I was 13, 14 years old, my pops got me into fishing. And we would drive down to the end of our street. There'd be this like bar / we also sell minnows / it's like a drive-through to get all your beer and stuff. So we like drive through to get our minnows, drive 10 minutes down the road. And my grandfather had a neighbor who owned a pond that was never fished. And so we'd throw these minnows in and pop, throw them in, pop. I mean, I just remember it never took long to catch a bass. They're all the same size. So between that minnow and a tube bait, I slayed bass all the way through high school. And that's really what it was. Tube bait or minnow, that's all I knew. And so I've had this ebb and flow of fishing ever since. And I really got back into it back in 2018, really specializing in my love for kayak fishing. And so that's a really high level. There's a lot of stories in there, but I'm from Northeast Ohio. I do a lot of my fishing up here. Kayak fishing is my favorite, followed by close second. I love river, kind of creek fishing, really starting to get into that. I'm traveling here in a few weeks ago in the middle of Pennsylvania to go kind of river fishing there. The water's low and the smallmouth are large and the trout are awesome. And we go for like 3 days with a pastor friend of mine about a half hour away. And the last couple of years we have slayed it. And so just incredible. Elk are coming out and like getting water in the morning and I'm just casting,
Oh, wow.
That sounds awesome.
It's pretty good. No cell phone service. That's pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, that's the best.
I usually tell everyone anyways, I don't typically have cell phone service, even though I may have cell phone service because I'm just not going to pick up the phone. I'm sure my wife when I'm fishing. So, but yeah, so I am it's not my full-time gig. I want it to be someday, but I work for a ministry called Prison Fellowship. And so essentially I work with the organizations, individuals who support the ministry in a significant way, and I make sure they're connected in a meaningful way. And so I do that with about 150 of the clients there. And I've been fundraising for about 15 years. Prior to that, I was a youth pastor, a student minister for 5 years. And I went to school I got a major in youth and family ministries and ministerial Bible. And so I've been in ministry for a very, very long time. And married to my wife, Danielle, got 2 kids, 7 and 5. It's my dream that someday they will take over my channel when I'm no longer able to do it anymore. But I think that's just my dream. My wife keeps saying that's great, Daren. I understand that's your dream. That might not be their dream, but still, back in my head, it's my dream. So that's a little about me.
Yeah, for sure. So, tell us a little bit about the channel. How did that kind of get started? Where did that idea come from? And what kind of videos do y'all have up there?
Yeah, I don't get to answer this a whole lot. Every once in a while, I'll kind of share it in little bits and pieces. It started back, let me see, about 3 years ago. I resigned from a previous job of mine, and my wife and I sold our house because we thought we were going to have to move for my position. I was in more of a senior leadership role, and I didn't love working off-site. And so we thought, well, if I'm going to get a job somewhere, we're going to move so I can actually work in the office. So I don't get passed over for opportunities just by being out of sight, out of mind. So we sold our house. We moved in with my mother and father-in-law down in West Virginia. And about 3 months into living there, my father-in-law passed unexpectedly from a heart attack in the home. And that was a tough time. And it was that kind of realization for me. And this was like a month or two after his passing. I was just thinking, I really love fishing. I want to be able to teach my kids someday about fishing. Well, they might not want to learn when I'm around, right? I might not be around. I mean, it was very clear in that moment that, okay, what is a way that I can kind of chronicle this for them? Like, well, YouTube. So I was like, sweet. So I just started doing YouTube videos on fishing, like how do you take your kids fishing and so forth. And I had my kids in some of the videos with me and hear their cute little voices when they're 5 and 6. And so that was awesome. And then my wife and I started getting into discussions about how much money I was spending on fishing. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll just monetize, right? So for those who aren't familiar, on the podcast, to monetize your YouTube channel, you have to have 1,000 subscribers. I actually just lowered that recently, so that's false. But you have to have like 4,000 watch hours in a given year rolling. And so in 1 year in, I was able to meet that. And I was like, oh, wow. And it wasn't like, but a couple months later, I'm like, wait a second, this is growing. Like, I can see the projection of this. Back in the day, if you were to ask me the question like 3 or 4 years ago, Daren, what would you love to do if you could do anything? I'd be like, oh, I'd be a professional fisherman. But that was like so ludicrous at the time because you weren't a professional fisherman unless you won tournaments. That's how it's been for, a decade ago. Not today. You don't even have to enter a single tournament and you can go full-time fishing. And I was thinking, I can do this now. There is a path for a guy like me who doesn't really even like tournaments and doesn't really get involved with knowing the names and how, professional fishermen. I appreciate what they do. It's just not my scene. But there's a path for a guy like me to actually go full-time on this. And so did the quick math. Like, I can do this. I can go full-time in 3 years, 3 to 5 years. That was 2.5 years ago. And I believe I'm on track for another about 2 years, maybe less, to do this thing. And so that's kind of been the story. I've been grinding incredibly hard. I mean, 3 shorts a day, a live show on Tuesday, and 2 long form videos a week. And I've been keeping that pace up, even though everyone's like, oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. I was like, that's fine. You don't have to do that, but I'm going to outwork you. All right. There's guys out there who are willing to do that. I'm going to outgrind. I'm going to out-strategize. And so Lord's been good to the channel. Kayak Fishing for the Weekend Warrior. If you're looking for a channel like that, that's what I got 700 videos on the subject. So fishing kayaks, lures, anything, how windy's too windy, for kayak overviews, my setups. I just did one on my favorite lure, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, probably, I'm sure. But man, it's been an absolute blast. I would do it if I didn't get paid for it.
Awesome. And I will say, without a doubt, your hard work has paid off. I mean, you can tell how hard you work whenever you look at your channel and your brand and how you present yourself and the consistency. And I mean, just the quality, I mean, down to the things like whenever you had us on your show, like the emails that you sent out a week in advance with all of the instructions and how to do everything. And I was like, man, this guy's got it. Like, Robert and I were just talking, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, about how these guys that are out there making it may not necessarily be that they're better than you. They're just working harder than you. And you are one of those guys that is working harder than us.
And I'm not better. Trust me. I always tell people I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm usually the last one standing. And in YouTube, that's what it takes. It's gotta be the last one standing.
I think also that's what people want. They want real people to watch. I know when I'm going through videos on YouTube, I want something that's real. I don't want, a flare or somebody like that who, is a lot of time they're just putting on a show. I'd rather watch somebody who is, I was going to ask you about this, but, you're throwing a lose,
Xfinity rod.
yeah, Xfinity
Heck yeah,
rod.
I am.
Because we just broke down like rods, and I have some super nice rods, and then even in our rod breakdown, I'm like, but this Xfinity rod has caught more fish than all of those other rods combined, because I don't know, I like that the reel on it is super smooth, and and that's my wacky rig setup. I keep
Yeah.
tied on all the time. So that's the reason it's caught more fish, is probably not the rod and the reel, but what's always tied on that particular one. But when I was going through your videos, I'm like, that's what people want to see is, not somebody out there in, a $20,000 kayak with 3 screens hanging off of it, and some maybe talking over a lot of the audience's head. Showing you how to do live scope, which, only a small percentage of people have, but, go out and just, catch fish, and, people, that's what people want to see. So, um, I'm in the same process as Cam was a couple of weeks back when he said he was binge watching. Like now, every time that I'm scrolling, it's a short from you, it's a video that's coming up, and I'm like, okay, well, we'll just make this a Wendell fishing day, and we'll just watch as many as we can. So,
I think I don't know if I do it on purpose. It's not a strategy for me, but what you're referring to is being relatable, right?
yeah.
And I mean, if you can walk down to Walmart and buy that Xfinity rod for $70, that's the majority of people entering into the fishing, kind of newbies. And that's where I like to stay, right? I have a yak rod. Guess what reel I have on it? You're going to laugh at me. I have the Xfinity reel on my yak rod. I have other reels. I don't know, for some reason. I mean,
I'm telling you, that's a good reel.
Yeah.
I'll switch to another reel. Even I've had some Shimano's and stuff, and I'll switch to that, and I'm like, damn, I like that Xfinity spinning reel better than whatever other kind of one, and it's crazy. I don't know. And now you can't find that specific one anymore. At least I can't find that orange one anymore. But
oh, really?
I had 2 of them, and now I'm down to 1. I wrecked one of them. So
I love the color. Everybody always asks me, what rod is that? It's like, it's Xfinity rod. Here's the Walmart link where you can go get it.
For sure. Like you said, that's what the majority of people, because whenever you look at anglers, there are, I don't even know how many people that fish in the United States. And people who are fishing with a Walmart rod, and like bobber and worms are probably 80% of those people, if not more. So
the ugly stick. People live and die by the ugly stick.
Oh yes. Whenever I first got into fishing, like to the point where I started doing more than just than just going out and fishing every once in a while, and I actually got really into it. I was getting my buddy into it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, my cousin, he's really big into fishing too. He's got an ugly stick."
Robert, you know why I love the Xfinity rod? I mean, it's 6'6", so it's not that long.
Yeah, it's not long.
But it's so light. And
Yeah,
so as I get more and more into fishing, as I get older and older, like I'll pick up that yak rod, and I had a pen battle on it. It only weighed 1 pound total. But after a while, you're like, my old wrists are hurting me. Yeah. And so I like how light it is, and you can just whip that thing around all day long. And when you land a 4 or 5, I've caught 6 on it before, it bends over. I mean,
It does, yeah.
like a candy cane.
And that's the rod that I caught that fish that I had earlier. That's the rod I just keep in the back of my truck all the time. But then when I go out on the kayak, it goes in the kayak. I mean, I keep in the back of the truck. It rains on it. It's been out in the weather. The orange on it is so faded that mine looks pink now. It doesn't even look orange anymore because the sun has faded it so much. And, I'm just like, it's just a knock around. It's a good rod and reel, I mean, I'll be sad when it's no more, but hopefully it'll hang in a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. All right. So Daren, let's kind of shift gears a little bit and dive into the faith side of things.
Yeah.
Tell us your faith story. Like, what is it that you believe in, and how did you come to believe in it?
Yeah, my faith story comes from, I guess, many stories. I grew up with my family going to church. It was more of a kind of a Pentecostal church. I didn't know what that meant at that moment. I just remember going to church. I was involved in the church plays. And I was involved in a youth group in high school. And there was one particular defining moment for me is when the church split. And the pastor that my parents really liked left, and they stopped going. And it was that moment. I remember I was 16 years old. I could drive, and this was like, it's go time. Is this faith my parents' faith, or do I get up on Sunday morning and hop in the car and drive myself to church to see if this thing is real for me? And that's what I did. I hopped in the car and drove myself to church on Sunday mornings, and it was like a half hour away. I was involved in the youth group. And I just remember, you guys remember Acquire the Fire by any chance? It's a huge conference back in the day. Oh, yeah.
I do.
And so that was the moment where, come down front if you wanted to declare the Lord, Jesus, your Lord and Savior. And I'm like, I am in. And I've never looked back ever since. Ended up going to Kentucky Christian University to get my double major because I loved the youth ministry so much. It had such an impact on my life. I wanted to lead that for other students. And so a lot of people felt the calling to do that. So I went to school for youth and family ministries and ministerial Bible majors at Kentucky Christian University. Had a fantastic 4 years, got my bachelor's there. And then I had a weekend youth ministry when I was in college. And so that was awesome. Did that for 2 years. And then after that, did an internship on the west side of Indianapolis at Kingsway Christian Church. And just all great experience. They kept me around for another year, did a residency. It was a fairly large youth group. There's like 100 high schoolers, another 140 junior hires. And so these were like large churches at this point. And then was able to land a position up in Beloit, Wisconsin at Central Christian Church as the student pastor, like the student pastor. And before I told them, hey guys, before I come up there, I had heard a story of a guy who was doing a sermon, kind of practice sermons in some of our classes. And he shared the story of how he was going to ride his bike across the United States and ended up getting scared like a weekend because he heard some weird noises outside of the tent and he quit. And that stuck with me. And so I told the student ministry up in Wisconsin, I was like, I will start, but you got to wait 3 months because I had to cycle across the country 4,400 miles kind of at that time it was, Lord, kind of lead me. If you put me in front of someone who's hungry, I'll feed them. If you put me in front of someone who needs prayer, I'll do that. I was just kind of really open, and I was getting a lot of attention because as I was riding across the United States, literally going the Trans-American Trail from Oregon, like to Myrtle Beach, I would pick up a license plate because they're all over the road, and I tie it to my bob trailer on the back of my touring T2000 bicycle. And people are like, I'm like 3 or 4 states in. They're like, no way, you traveled from where? And I'd have conversations everywhere I went. So that was a fantastic 3 months. I journaled that. I always wanted to put it in a book. So it was so defining for me. But I'm cruising through the story here just for the sake of time. But then finished that up. Did 2 years youth ministry at Central Christian Church. Had a great experience there, but really had that itch to. I remember doing my devotionals every morning, and I was reading God's word where it was saying, I was just being challenged through just realizing I was one of the wealthiest people on the planet just by being an American, period. And being challenged by what gifts and passions the Lord's given me and how am I supposed to turn around and use those to serve him. And so all these questions kind of running through my mind. And I really came to the conclusion after about 6 months, like, okay, the Lord made me an athlete. I love long distance endurance challenges, and I can use these to serve his kingdom by doing fundraisers. And so I don't know if you guys I don't think we've talked about this last night, but since then I have walked across the country. It took me 374 days, climbed Kilimanjaro 3 times. These are all fundraisers. Swam 50.6 miles across Lake Michigan, nonstop. What are some other ones? Oh, I ran 100 marathons in 100 days cross country and hiked the Appalachian Trail. Like I've done a ton. This is like my resume of long distance endurance challenges and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for ministries that I cared about, primarily those providing clean water internationally. And so after my youth ministry, I did the walk across the country. And after that, I started a nonprofit back in 2018 that served, that really came alongside the athletic lifestyle, kind of doing crowdsourcing. So if you wanted to run a marathon or do a double century ride, we would set you up with the fundraising pages and, organize it and give you everything you need to fundraise. And then we help provide clean water wells in Africa and, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Cambodia. And so my faith story has been really one from the time since I can remember to being involved in supporting ministries through either athletic adventures or through fundraising ever since. Man, that was a long story, but hopefully that was all right.
What do you want to?
Breath. You're like,
no. I mean, where to start on that? But
for real.
I'm totally intrigued in the Across America deal. I mean, what if you had that chronicled on YouTube videos? How many millions of views would that get on any of those trips? Well, I can tell you, it would be millions and millions of views, and you would already be done. On your 3 to 5 year journey, you'd be done. I got it. Me and my wife we are set in our heads. We're going to do the Appalachian Trail, and so I started binging Appalachian Trail YouTubers, and they have, tons of views on a lot of these people, and you can just follow them across, and they post videos of, every 2 or 3 days they'll get somewhere and they'll be able to upload a video. And I've had so much fun just watching. We have about 3 or 4 that we watch on a consistent basis, and it's just fun to see those, to see how it affects them. And some of them it breaks them down, but all of them, when you spend that much time doing something, almost all of them, it brings them closer to the Lord. And it's just something about the outdoors. It's something about challenging yourself that seems to do that. But man, what an awesome story.
Robert, I have a dream. This goes along with the dream. All my dreams usually involve my girls doing something crazy with me. And if they were ever to say, like in between high school and college, hey, Dad, I want to hike the Appalachian Trail with you, I would quit whatever I'm doing.
Oh, yeah.
And take 6 months off and do it. And if I'm full-time on YouTube, which I am by then, I would do fishing the Appalachian Trail. So get a little collapsible pool and just do all the videos of fishing all the waterfalls and ponds and lakes all along the way. I think that'd be a blast. You can do it together.
I have a feeling you'll be able to do that by the time, in between high school and college. I think you're well on your way. You keep up the pace you're at, you won't have any problem doing that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And there are y'all talking about doing the Appalachian Trail and marathons and biking across the country and stuff. Y'all are a completely different breed than I am. I love like reading books from people who have done these kinds of things and stuff. But it's not something that I have a desire to do myself. But I mean, it's super inspiring to hear it from other people's perspectives, hearing what they encountered and how they encountered God on those trips and stuff like that. But I mean, it's the kind of thing that makes me like, it's just so far beyond what, not only what I'm capable of, but what I ever have a desire to do, that it makes me just sit back and just be like, wow. Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm super thankful that there are those who are the kinds of doers that do that kind of thing. I'm the kind of doer that shops at Home Depot. So
Right. Get it done.
Yeah,
That's
but
good.
you would be surprised at the parallels on fishing and kayak fishing, and doing something like getting into marathons or triathlons. That's what my wife. I mean, I fish, and my wife does some triathlons and some marathons. She's done a half Ironman,
Mhm.
so I help her train for those. And I've done one half marathon, and I'm like, yeah, I got that box check. I don't need to run that far again.
Retired.
Yeah, no, I'm good, but I will do some races with her every once in a while. We did Cooper River Bridge runs, 10K over the Cooper River Bridge in Charleston, South Carolina. It was a ton of fun. But I see her when she does that. It's like me and fishing and kayak fishing. You just get that adrenaline rush out of it, and you feel a sense of accomplishment. Like a good day out on the water. So I can totally see, and you don't think you could, Cam, but I'm telling you, if I can do it, anybody can do it, because I am like huge and probably not at my ideal weight. Let's just put it that way.
You guys want to hear a funny story? You reminded me something when it comes to like, hey, if you had YouTube whenever you did the Appalachian Trail. I did the Appalachian Trail in 2008. And I remember, check this out. Robert, you appreciate this because you're doing the deep dive. Pack weight is everything.
Oh yeah.
Ounces matter. Like, people are cutting off half their toothbrush. Like, that's how much this stuff like matters. But bro over here was like, hey, I gotta update my Zanga while I'm gone, because that's what was up and going then, was Zanga. MySpace was just coming to the scene, but Zanga was still hanging on, and that's what I had. And so I literally packed a laptop in my backpack and started out with that. And if you guys know anything about the Appalachian Trail, about a week into the Appalachian Trail, there's this outfitter, and they do something called the shakedown. And so essentially what they'll do is they'll take everything in your backpack, lay it on the floor, and be like, okay, you're not going to make it if you're carrying this, and this. You don't need it. And of course, what you do need is this $150, 4-ounce stove right here, and I'll sell it to you in a moment. And they've seen plenty enough. A lot of them have hiked the Appalachian Trail themselves. So the way they pulled out my laptop, they about lost it. Like, what in the world is this?
That's good stuff.
8-pound laptop doing
I was
in your
getting ready to
backpack?
say, laptops in 2008 were not
No.
not tiny or light.
No, and like charger cord was an extra pound. It was silly. I started getting smart. Started shipping it in those
There you
flat
go.
rate boxes to the next post office, like a week away. And then I spent all day typing up my Zanga. So that was how it was done back in circa 2008.
That's awesome. Yeah. Robert and Darren, let me put it to you this way. If you ever see me running, it's probably a good idea to run in the same direction. And it's probably a good idea to run faster than me.
Got
Because
it.
most likely something's chasing me.
I can do that.
I joke that speed has never been my defining attribute, and I joke that my fight or flight instinct changed to a fight instinct a long time ago because I'm not outrunning much of anything.
Well, hold up, because on the show last night, you were like, we're talking about pedal drives and the new EPDL from Old Town, and you're like, I'm a paddle only purist. Like, that's work, brother. So you must not mind a little bit of work or a lot of work on a windy day.
Oh, I don't mind work. I just don't like running.
Got it.
All right, man. Well, we've got a couple questions that we always ask every guest. And I want to make sure that we get your answers as well. What fishing story or memory means the most to you?
Ooh, it just happened like a month ago. So I've taken my girls. So my oldest is 7. Her name's Mercy, and my youngest is 5. Her name is River. And we've caught bluegill and all that stuff, crappie and catfish, but they caught their first bass like a month ago. So I was like, okay, where can I take them? As a father, when you're taking your kids out for fishing for the first time, as much as you love it, you're like, I can't take them to a place you're going to get skunked. They'll never want to go back out with me. So I'm like, I got to find the honey hole of all honey holes. So about 7 months ago, one of my buddy's father bought this property, and it had a 12-acre lake that hasn't been fished in like 20 years. So I'm like, that's the place. So I take them over there, throw on the wacky worm, and I'm like, okay, Mercy, get over here. She can cast really good. So cast this out, tug, tug, reel, reel, tug, tug, reel, reel, and boom, got a hit. First cast. I'm like, oh, yes. Thank you, Lord. I was like, come here, River. She had her little pole that she won in the tournament. She threw it out. Tug, tug, reel, reel. Smash! Another bass smashes it. And they were just like, every cast, largemouth bass were smashing these things. And it was like, you probably, I know a lot of people have that picture, right? With their dad, with their mom, or grandpa, or grandma, with their first fish. And when my wife took that, I'm like, they're going to remember this kind of forever. At least I hope they will. Like, that'll be the photo when I'm long gone, maybe, where we caught our first bass together. So that was just a month ago. And so that meant a whole lot with both of them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know Cam is the same, with his young son, and so I see him, he'll send me pictures like, we went today and we got some bluegill, and Henry is holding it up and he's got a grin on there, and I'll look back and I'll scroll through, and it's a good thing about Google Photos, you can put in like fish, and it'll search for fish, and then it'll bring up all the pictures of fish. And then you can, like, I'll scroll back to when my kids were little and we used to go out on this little John boat. And there's one picture of my daughter, and she's holding up a bluegill, and she has the bluegill's here, and her hand is beside it. And she's trying to show that it's as big as her hand. And then her mouth is like that. That's the best. It's the best picture. So that's a great story. Another question that we ask is, when you're on the water, what do you usually talk about with whoever you're fishing with? What's your conversation usually like?
Oh, I've never been asked that question before. Usually when I go out with individuals in the water lately, they have been channel subscribers. I call them community members. I never call them subscribers. So a lot of times they're just really interested in kind of the behind the curtain of YouTube. So that's a lot of our conversations. Latest gear. Just found out that one of my friends that I've been going fishing with for a couple of times, found out that both of us were Christ followers. And he's like, I know that's why I felt a connection with you. And so we started sharing a little bit of that. And so we have a connection now that was kind of neat that we didn't realize necessarily at first. And so it really can go here this way or that way, but it's been nice. I find a couple other men of faith who I didn't know they were men of faith, and so we started fishing together. And so, I've always hoped that the channel just wouldn't be like Wendell Fishing, and when you go there, it's just kayak fishing, right? I would imagine that when you follow, there's a ton of other people doing kayak fishing channels. Some of them are very similar content that I do. And so you have a lot of choices. I would imagine that the people who choose to watch Wendell Fishing is that, your vibe kind of attracts your tribe, is what they say. And so I would imagine that they, through the way I conduct myself, I don't have no need to curse. I try to provide people with respect. If you honor me by writing a comment, I'm going to honor you back by writing you back. Try to be encouraging. I don't feed the trolls. Don't get into those conversations. And so I try to communicate that. And so when you guys asked me to be on the show and I had the opportunity to share that, I'm a Christ follower and that's something that's really important to me, I was like, I need more of these opportunities. I need to really, I'm praying the Lord provides those opportunities in the comments. and really just be a little bit more strategic. And how do I communicate these things a little bit more direct instead of indirect? So it's been an interesting journey for me.
That's awesome. And your vibe, what did you say?
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
I love that. I love that.
That's
And
a good
I mean, and so as somebody who has, like, before I really got into podcasts, I was really into YouTube videos, and it was a time where I had more time to sit down and watch YouTube videos, and I got to the point where, you know, these people who were living, they lived halfway across the country. Like, I felt like I knew them. Like, I I still catch myself doing it. Like, I'll listen to a podcast and I'll say, yeah, I've got a buddy who lives in such and such, and it's like, never talked to them before.
Never met him before.
Listen to their podcast. And it's like, whenever you're a genuine person and you're relatable and everything, people feel like they know you. And that's something that I feel like you really excel at on your channel is like you're approachable, and like people who watch your videos feel like they are part of the community. They do feel like they know you and they have a relationship with you, even if they never commented on anything.
Yeah.
So,
You know, as someone who's in fundraising, and nonprofits are notoriously bad for doing this. A lot of times in nonprofits fundraising communications, they're like, hey, everyone, look what we did. And that is like fundraising faux pas number one, like the worst offense. Because Wendell Fishing I'm not the hero of that story. Like you, the listener, you're the hero of this story. And so watching me catch a fish, who cares? I get jazzed and jacked whenever you send me a photo that you caught your personal best from a lure video that you watched. Or, hey, I fell out of my kayak, now I know how to get back into it. Or, you know, this could have been a really sketchy situation, but through some of the safety measures that I had because of some of your videos, that didn't happen. Thank you. That's the win. The win is never like, hey, watch Daren grow his channel to a million subscribers. I am not the hero of the story. And so sometimes it's really easy in YouTube, in the kind of the me-centered society that we live in, to think that is the storyline. For at least for Wendell Fishing, it is not. I don't know what got me on that rabbit trail, but hey, I'm here we are.
no, I love it. I mean, like I said on your show last night, you know, that was something that I got caught up in, was I kind of tried to make myself the hero of the Faith and Fishing story. And it wasn't until that I kind of redirected and figured out, like, refocused on what my why was, and kind of reframed my perspective, that and remembered that it's not about me, it's about the guest, and sharing their story. And that's my favorite thing. We don't really have a lot of people that reach out and say, hey, your podcast like did something for me. What I end up getting back is people who have reached, like, is the guest telling me that somebody has reached out to them saying, hey, your story made a difference in my life. And that's what it's all about for the Faith and Fishing podcast. That's what has really become special to me. And that's whenever I feel like, yeah, we got it on this one.
Yeah, your broken relationships. I love it.
That happened today, matter of fact.
I saw the story on socials.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for sharing that. I thought that was pretty rad.
Yeah, that was awesome. Big shout out to J2 Country for sharing that story with us. But yeah, so let's go ahead. We're going to break real quick, share a couple sponsors, or thank a couple sponsors, and then we are going to dive into our What's Your Favorite segment. We do it with every guest, and it's self-explanatory. We're going to ask you your favorite in a few different categories, and we will get it started right after this. If finesse fishing is your comfort zone, something you want to learn better this year, or just something you like to tie on as a Hail Mary pass, Jade's Jigs has everything you need and more, and it's all eco-friendly and lead-free. With an awesome selection of baits and colors, they've got a variety of techniques covered for you. Finesse jigs, underspins, Nico weights, Ned rigs, and more are all waiting for you at jadesjigs.com. And while you're there, use promo code FNF10 for 10% off your purchase. That's jadesjigs.com and promo code FNF10 for 10% off. Few things ruin your day on the water as bad as losing gear. But with the retrieval devices for fishing rods, action cams, bow fishing bows, and more from Save Your Outdoors, you don't have to let dropping your stuff ruin your day because you can get it back. The pressure-sensitive filter keeps water from rain and quick dips in the water out, but it lets water in when your gear goes overboard to release a float attached to your gear by 60 feet of line so you can get it back. Go to SaveYourOutdoors.com to learn more and try some for yourself, and use promo code FNFP15 to save 15% on your order. That's SaveYourOutdoors.com and promo code FNFP15. All right. So,
we switched places.
Yeah.
And I've never seen those saver things before. That was pretty cool. Brilliant idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, shout out to Corey and Save Your Outdoors. They have saved me quite a bit of money. I jokingly refer to myself as the world's clumsiest kayak angler. So
that's your handle for YouTube.
I should if nothing else, I should change my my Instagram handle to to that. But yeah, so let's dive into what's your favorite. So Robert, you ready?
Yeah, sure. So we'll start out with what's your favorite scripture?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes to Philippians, the scripture that everyone loves. Like I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and I mean according to His will, right? And I've seen that. The reason I love it so much is because I've seen it with my long distance endurance challenges. Like some of those things were crazy. I told people when I tell people those ideas, they're like, it can't be done. You can't swim 50.6 across Lake Michigan without stopping. Period. Don't try it. And so I really had to lean in. You can't run 100 marathons in 100 straight days without stopping. So I really had to lean into scriptures like that, where I knew He was there for me, and if He called me to it, then He was going to be able to provide the way and make a way for it. So I leaned heavily into that. I leaned heavily into that scripture over the years.
Okay, absolutely. What about a story from the Bible? Is there one of those that's your favorite?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm blanking right now. I like provision stories, right? And so the one I keep on hearing, at least recently, is, I mean, when in Egypt, when the parting of the Red Sea, where it just seems like when the Israelites are there and they turn around, there's army behind them, and there's the sea in front of them. And I would imagine that the majority, what was going through their mindset was like, I'm doomed over here. I'm doomed over here. I got nothing. And then not a single one of them was like, oh, that sea is going to open up. We're just going to walk through it. And so I've seen the Lord work in ways that have been not necessarily the way I wanted it to go, but He has provided and He's made a way. And so stories like that, where He works in kind of miraculous ways, and His ways are not, they're way above our ways, and kind of leaning into those. And so that's a story I've just been hearing recently. So that's why it came to my mind. But provision stories mean a lot to me.
Cool. So we'll switch it up and go with some fishing favorites. What is your favorite fish to fish for?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, primarily largemouth. But although I love catching largemouth, there's nothing like the fight of a river schmally. Everyone knows that. But above that, there's nothing like the fight of what I'm going to be doing next week on Lake Michigan, fishing for king salmon. And so I'm going to be out there. My wife's uncle owns a salmon fishing boat, and he knows how to get on them and get on them fast. And so I'll be reeling hopefully 20, 23, 25 pounders out of Lake Michigan sometime on Monday or Tuesday. So, but that's kind of in that order: kings, smallies, largies.
Okay, absolutely. What about your favorite fish to catch?
To catch, I think probably smallmouth. I like the creek fishing. Kind of, they're in the holes. They fight. They can break you off. They just don't swallow it. A lot of times they'll just like I fish with a lot of live crayfish when we go. I'm going in a couple weeks, and they'll like grab it, and you also have to wait like 15 seconds because they'll take it off somewhere, just basically nip on the end of it. And half the time when you set the hook, it's just you come back up with a half of crayfish. So they're just interesting, but the fight in them is just a blast, an absolute blast.
All right, so we're gonna switch to what's your favorite fish to eat?
No, I don't eat a lot of fish. I mean, maybe 0.02%. But I was actually walleye fishing earlier this week, and so I like walleye, stick by number 1, crappie number 2, bluegill number 3, and maybe once every year, once every 2 years, I actually eat smallmouth, and I think they're pretty solid, especially if you get a clean smallmouth or a catfish from a clear river. I just never take the time to fillet them because I barely have enough time to fish with kids.
Yeah,
The idea of going home and
same.
cutting them up and eating them, I know how to do it. It's just I don't have the time to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm someone who like I love to eat fish, but my wife does not like to eat fish, and I don't really like to clean fish. So in the occasion um that I want to eat fish, I'm just going to go get it from somewhere. Like we have some seafood markets just down the road that if I really want to cook fish, I can just go and get it there. Because like I feel silly like going out fishing for crappie and bringing one crappie home to fillet and cook, and we don't have space in the freezer for me to bring home a lot. And so yeah, I don't really do that a lot either. But what is your favorite fishing snack?
Ooh, coffee. Period. I usually fish. So interesting enough, people are like, "Dude," I literally had someone write me on YouTube recently, like, "Hey, I don't you have a family? How do you get out so much?" My alarm is set for 5 a.m. and I get at least 2.5 hours of fishing in before work a couple times a week. And so that's how I get a lot of my fish. And so usually when I fish, it's between 5:30 and 8. And so my snack is coffee. I usually don't eat a whole lot on my kayak. It's just that's
That's
it.
cool.
Actually, I don't eat hardly at all,
Okay.
come to think of it.
So hot or cold?
Oh, hot in the morning.
Do you drink it black?
Nah, a little bit of cream and sugar. Sometimes when I go to like the Sheets, which is our gas station up here in Northeast Ohio, I'll get like a little bit of the powder cappuccino things as my creamer, and then I go fill it up with the coffee, and I'm good to go.
Okay. And whenever you're not drinking Sheets coffee, is there a particular brand or roast that you're
Oh yeah, I roast my own. So,
Oh,
oh yeah. So before, as I was starting up the nonprofit I was talking about, it was called Active Water. I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, is where I lived, and Active Water was a startup, so I wasn't getting paid at all. So I worked as a barista for about 2 years, and really got into roasting. And so now I roast in a big cast iron skillet. I buy the green beans off of Amazon, and I get my favorite coffee from Ethiopia, the Yirgacheffe. I've actually been to that region because I used to do work in that region when it comes to providing clean water. I literally drove the hills where the men and women are picking the beans and drying them in their front yard. And it has just an incredible berry notes to that coffee. And when you can roast it at home and it's fresh, it's with a little bit of cream, Ethiopian Yirgacheffe, if you're looking for a new coffee to roast. Excellent roast.
Faith Fishing and the best coffee beans.
Come on now.
There you go. Now, what about, as Cam usually asks this question, and he says, you don't have to give us your GPS coordinates or anything like that, but what's your favorite body of water to fish?
It's lakes. I actually got that question today. This is interesting that you asked this because, and I know you're not asking me for where I fish, but this guy kind of was. He's like, "Where do you fish?" And I was like, "Oh, I share everything I know except that." They're like, "Oh, you don't have to tell me like your honey hole. Are you on Fish Brain?" I was like, "Yeah," but they share my location. He's like, "Oh, you can do it where we're going back and forth. You can do it. We can just share the body of water." I was like, "That to me is my location. That's my honey hole. I'm not sharing it. I'm not going on Fish Brain. This is not happening." I like to keep that confidential. When it's someone who films, right, all the time, the locals will get pretty upset if you start,
saying where you're
I
at.
can catch fish, and I usually can catch large fish, and so people, when if you start showing that a whole lot, and you start showing recognizable places, and that could be a problem for you. I've seen YouTubers like trucks, tires get slit and notes, and you get yelled at. And so I'm not trying to bring extra attention to myself. If there's something in the background, I'll cut it out in editing. And so I really try to keep the places where I fish special because they are to me. And I want to respect others who maybe that's their lake as well.
Cool.
Okay,
But
absolutely.
public lakes, 99% of the time.
Right, for sure. Okay, so what is your favorite lure to throw? You said we would get to it, and
The juice.
let's get
Recently,
to it.
I just posted a video on this. It changes, right? But I always try to have a unconfidence lure tied on, and that lure will not go untied until either I snap it off on something or I learn it and master it. And for the last 2 months, I've had tied on the Yamamoto Yamatanuki. And if you guys have ever seen that, it looks like an upside down bowl. It just looks like a bowling pin. It's a real heavy plastic weight. I mean, plastic heavy. It's a heavy plastic and full salt like Yamamoto is. But this thing is incredibly versatile. I'm using it and pulling it across pads like a frog, and they're slamming it. I'm throwing it on the shore and kind of reeling it out, and they're killing it. I'm just letting it fall next to structure. They're killing it. I mean, everywhere I'm throwing this thing, they are absolutely destroying it. I just did a video on it. It's titled "The $1.25 Lure That Nobody Knows About" and how to slay bass on it. And it's up to like 3,000 plus views right now. And I'm just absolutely loving the green pumpkin, black fleck Yamatanuki. Do yourself a favor right now. I was just out this morning. I probably caught 15 fish on it. And so to put 18 on the board a few days before that. And so it usually gets, the wacky worm, Robert, you made mention last night. You can get a lot of fishing numbers, and every once in a while you get a big to latch onto it. But, by averages, they're dinks 14 inches below. The Yamatanuki seems like just to get your mouth around it, thing's thick. So you're looking typically 13-inch plus. And so like it takes over where the wacky worm lets off. And I feel like the strike rate is right around, at least for me, right around where the wacky worm is right now. So Yamatanuki's my jam right now.
All right. We'll have to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's the end of my list of questions. Did I miss one? You're looking at me like I have another question.
Yeah. Last but not least, what's your favorite time of year to fish?
Oh, man. Up here, March. March is my favorite. So, iced off is just like a month before that. But I know where the bigs are in March on the lakes that I fish, and they are just feeding like mad. And so I didn't really take advantage of it. I found a couple honey holes this past year that I'm going to revisit next year, and they should still be there. But March is my favorite, just by the sheer size of the fish I was able to catch. I think I put over 90 inches on the board. And for Northeast Ohio, not a bad day.
That's for for anywhere. That's good.
Yeah,
for sure. So where you are, March would be pre-spawn?
Oh yeah, okay. Definitely pre-spawn. I mean, they're just probably a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. They're coming off the spawn. Most are off now. I mean, they're kind of back into their summer haunts, deep water, shallow water. But
I don't know.
I see the fry everywhere still, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I don't know about there, but here it seems like everything was a month late this year. So, um,
yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, we're going to start wrapping things up, man. Kind of let us know, what do you have coming up next? What's coming up next for Wendell Fishing?
Yeah, for the channel, I'm just kind of doing. I want to do a lot more fishing kayak reviews, and so I partner with a local Falls Outdoors around here, and I'm gonna have access to kind of the latest and greatest kayaks. So he's gonna let me do some demos on it and kind of bring that kind of angle into the channel a little bit. I want to do some more lure reviews, but really just kayak fishing. And I mean, hey, if you're out there listening and you're like, hey, your story resonated with me, reach out to me. I respond to everybody. Don't reach out to me on TikTok. I don't respond to any that, in my opinion, that garbage platform. But if you reach out to me on Instagram or YouTube, or you find my email on YouTube, reach out to me. I love to connect, especially if you're listening from around the area. Hey, we'll tie on some Yamatanukis and go get some.
Awesome. And where can listeners find you? Shout out your socials, your YouTube channel, all that good stuff, website, whatever you've got. Let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, and not a lot of people are able to do this today, but it's at Wendell Fishing on all of them, right? And so got lucky. Not a lot of people have my last name or how it's spelled. Or you can go to wendellfishing.com and it'll take you to my YouTube channel. I'm primarily on Instagram, YouTube. I post on TikTok, and I just ditched Twitter because it was stupid. So that's gone. So no longer doing that. But my focus though is YouTube all the way. I mean, that's if you're trying to make money or trying to go full time in the fishing biz, YouTube's where you do it, not on the other platforms.
Okay, absolutely. And I see your epic not sponsored shirt.
You guys like that?
But do you have any supporters or anybody you want to give shout outs to, say thank you to, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's my community members. They're my sponsors. And I was just talking to my wife. The funny thing about this, she got this for me for her birthday, which is just like 3 days ago. And I thought for a long time, I was like, babe, like, do I just go the not sponsor route? Right? It'll probably take longer. But my sponsors are the community, and I probably won't go that route, but she bought me this shirt anyways, because right now I am not sponsored outside of those who watch my videos for my birthday. So people are like, hey man, I didn't get anything, but I let your videos run on my computer for the last 12 hours. I was like, as a content creator, there's no better gift than that right there. So thank you so much. So they get it. They know not to skip the ads, because that's what keeps the channel rolling.
Heck yeah. Well, Daren, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. We have had a blast, and thank you for having us on your show. And look forward to seeing what is in store for Wendell Fishing. And yeah, man, wish you all the best.
Hey, thank you, Robert, Cam.
Thank you.
See each other around. I appreciate it.
Mr. B Lure Company is making high-quality, handcrafted lures and has been for 30 years, right here in the U.S. Using all-metal components, owner and gamakatsu hooks, and silicone or frog hair skirts, Mr. B is pumping out some awesome spinner baits, jigs, buzz baits, underspins, and more, including some of the most unique bladed jigs on the market. To fill up your tackle box, go to MrBLureCompany.com, that's MRBLureCompany.com, and use promo code faithnfishnpod1x10 at checkout to save 10% on your first order. That's faith the letter N, fish the letter N, POD, so Faith and Fishing Pod, just like our Instagram handle, 1x10.
Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle is one of the largest canoe, kayak, and cycling retailers in the Southeast, with a huge selection of kayaks, canoes, bikes, and all the accessories needed to experience paddling and cycling comfortably and safely. Get Outdoors helps to expand and educate the paddling community through their free demos held on local lakes in the Greensboro, North Carolina area, and through in-store clinics and on-the-water courses and demos. And we'll even get your new boat rigged up for kayak fishing for you. Stop by the shop in Greensboro, North Carolina, or check out Shop getoutdoors.com to be wowed by their selection.
Another huge thank you to Daren for coming on the show and sharing his story with us. As always, I will leave his links in the show notes as well as the All Things Faith and Fishing link that has, it's got our sponsor links, it's got our merch store, it's got our Omnia Fishing profiles, it's got all that good stuff. And I'll also leave the link to Jackson Orr's Catch tournament for the end of July. So be sure to sign up for that. Robert, your thoughts on this one, man?
Oh, it's amazing to me how fast that he's grown his channel. So there's a lot of good information there, a lot of good tidbits, and I mean he's killing it right now. It's like you said, he's outworking a lot of people that are trying to do what he's doing. So one thing I did want to mention, I should have done it at the first of the show, but I've started a little side venture, Kayak Fishing Spotlight. So another YouTube channel, and basically going over other kayak fishing YouTube channels and almost like a weekly sports center. I did drop a video that had the new iCast kayaks, but check that out because Wendell Fishing is going to be featured on that coming up in the next week or so. So you guys can check that out to get more in-depth look at what he does.
Absolutely. And definitely go give Robert a subscribe. Let him know that you're paying attention and give him some love. But yeah, man, you want to close us out with prayer on this one?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Thank you, Lord, for this day that you've put in front of us. Thank you for allowing us to talk to Daren and hear about his faith journey. Give us the strength to put our faith out there in front of other people and to let our actions and words bring them closer to you, and keep everybody safe on the water. Watch over everybody that's out there. Let them return home safely to their family, and forgive us of our sins. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You want to sign us out?
Hey, man. Thanks for joining us on Faith and Fishing Podcast. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to the Faith and Fishing Podcast. Faith and Fishing is produced and hosted by Cam Steele and Robert Randolph, and is sponsored by Savior Outdoors, Jay's Jigs, Get Outdoors Pedal and Paddle, Mr. B Lure Company, Atollas, and Omnia Fishing. Don't forget to join the Facebook community, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe, rate, and review us on whatever app you're listening on. That's going to do it for this episode. Y'all take care, and God bless.